They're not in their graves.
Hello there, my creatures of the night, and welcome to another bone-chilling episode of Saturday Night Horror Theater! Alright, let's get it started, my ghouls and gals. On tonight's episode of Saturday Night Horror Theater, we're going to be doing a double feature, but we're going to start off with Fright Night 1985. Alright, let's get it started. Fright Night 85. Fright Night, the original Fright Night follows Charlie, who is a horror movie junkie, and it also follows Charlie's next door neighbor, Jerry, who happens to be a fucking vampire. Yup, there's a vampire, and his name is Jerry, and he lives next door to Charlie, and he's pretty much terrorizing Charlie's fucking life after Charlie finds out that Jerry is in fact a fucking vampire. No, not this Jerry. This Jerry. And I have to say, the film's villain, Jerry, he's a suave motherfucker, dude. I totally buy that this guy's a vampire, and this film, it sells him really well as a vampire. They frame him as this really cool dude who makes full use of his abilities as a vampire, and that's one thing that I really love that Fright Night does. It makes full use of the vampire, like, abilities. Specifically the ability of like allure, because as we know, vampires can use the power of allure to bring in like men or women and stuff, and Jerry the vampire, he does that a lot in this movie, and it's pretty cool. And it's pretty cool to see him utilize like that he can move super fast and that he's super strong. All of that is in full force. I hate when there's a vampire movie and the only thing they do is just slap on fangs on somebody and they don't do anything else other than that. This movie really explores exactly what a vampire can do, and I really appreciate it. I really appreciate that from a horror fan standpoint. Another thing that this film does that's really fucking awesome is its practical effects. I mean, just look at how fucking awesome that looks. I mean, if this movie was made today, oh wait, it was, but we'll get into that a little bit later. This would be like CG, and this would not be practical effects because, let's face it, it would cost too much fucking money. Even though they're spending all this fucking insane amounts of money to make movies like Fast and the Furious and the Avengers and stuff. And I'm not saying anything bad about those movies, but those movies have a budget that's big enough to sustain a small fucking country. So yeah, I really wish that we would bring practical effects back. I know that they're in some films, but then it's like a very small form. I'm not going to go on a whole rant about that, but yeah. This film has really great practical effects. Another thing that this film does is that it sets its tone really perfectly. Right off the bat, this film knows exactly what it wants to be. And that's a rated R fucking Scooby-Doo movie. And that's exactly what it is. This is essentially what Scooby-Doo would be if it's rated R. You have this guy who's addicted to horror movies, who finds out that he has a vampire living next door to him, and then he enlists the help of this horror movie host, who's kind of hacky, and he like kind of at first is really reluctant to help Charlie, and that man's name is Peter Vincent, and Peter is really reluctant to help Charlie. He's just like, no, I don't want to do that, fuck that. Once he finds out that the vampire is actually real, he's just like, double fuck that, I'm out, I don't want to help you, I don't care, whatever. And finally he comes around and he finally becomes the hero that he's meant to be. And it's really cool. This movie uses its tone really well. It sets a balance of tongue-in-cheek, but also a level of seriousness where you still can take it serious as a horror movie, because it does have some pretty graphic stuff in the movie, and they do set up a couple of cool shots directorial-wise that it frames the movie in a way where you're just like, yep, I'm watching a horror movie. You don't feel like you're watching a little kid's movie. You feel like you're watching an R-rated horror movie that just has a sense of humor. And boy, does this movie have a fucking sense of fucking humor. And I loved it for that. And now I can really see why this film was a cult classic. I had never seen this film before. I went in going completely fresh into this movie. I didn't even watch the trailer for this movie. And it was honestly a very pleasant surprise, and I am really, really interested at how it's going to compare to the 2011 remake version, which we're going to review right now after a short fucking intermission while I go and refill my Bloodweiser. I'll see you ghouls and gals in a second.
Good evening. It's intermission time. During the next 10 minutes, we invite you to visit our refreshment stand located in the center of the drive-in. Our service is friendly and quick. You'll find hot dogs, hamburgers, pizza, your favorite candies, hot and cold beverages, and other delicious snacks. So add to your fun of watching the movie. Visit our refreshment stand right now during our 10-minute intermission. We're glad to have you with us tonight, and we hope you'll come to see us often.
We are back, my creatures of the night. Let's continue this double feature review with the second review in the double feature, which is 2011's remake of Fright Night. I want to start off by saying this. It's going to sound like I didn't like this movie. I just want to say I didn't hate this movie. It's going to sound like I hated this movie, but I didn't hate this movie. Just wanted to let that out there for the record. Okay, let's start this review off by saying this thing. This movie does everything wrong. Yeah. This remake does, pretty much what a remake does. It remakes so hard that, wow. Well, you know what? Before I get into that, let me let you know who stars in this, piece of remake. The film stars, Will Ferrell, and it also stars Michael Cera, and it also stars Mick Lovin, and it also stars Austin Powers, and that's pretty much your principal cast. Oh yeah, and it also stars Imogen Poots, and that's not a made-up name, that's actually her name. Her last name is Poots. So yeah, that's your principal cast, and pretty much this remake is a remake. Like I said, it remakes so hard that you're just like, what the fuck? If you have any knowledge of the first Fright Night and you watch this movie, you're just going to be like, this does everything that the other one does, but not good? Again, I do not hate this movie. I thought it was decent, okay, if it was its own thing, but since it's a remake of a movie that is so fresh in my memory because I literally just watched it, this doesn't do a good job of adapting that remake. The Fright Night original movie is kind of more methodical, and it uses the Jerry character, remember, not this Jerry, and now we're talking about this Jerry, played by Will Ferrell. And yeah, Will Ferrell's Jerry is not as good as the dude that was the detective in the Child's Play movie. This guy right here. He is a way better vampire than this guy right here. And, which is weird because this guy right here looks like he would be a way better vampire than this fucking guy right here. So yeah, there's that. And I think that just goes back to like how the tone of the movie is set. The Fright Night remake is just interested in looking cool and getting its dick sucked. And I think that's the problem with the Fright Night remake, is that it was just too busy looking cool and wanted to get its dick sucked. Meanwhile, the original Fright Night remake ended up just being itself and ended up looking cool and ended up just getting its dick sucked. And I feel like that's the problem with a lot of people. Quit trying to look cool and just be yourself and you'll end up getting your dick sucked. There you go. I just fucking solved a major world fucking problem for everybody. But yeah, that's the major problem with the Fright Night remake. It is too busy and too worried with being cool. And meanwhile, the original Fright Night remake, the original Fright Night movie was a commentary on movies trying to act too cool, and kind of a boomer fucking message, if I'm being quite honest. The message of the original Fright Make was like, how come they don't make the movies like they used to? And basically this Fright Night remake would be the fucking movie that the original Fright Night movie would be making fun of. This is like the Fast and the Furious version of a horror film. And again, it's not bad. It's serviceable. If you like those MTV type of horror movies, if you're a fan of the Scream MTV series, you'll like this movie because that's what it is. It's more worried about being sexy than it is scary, and it's like, who cares about the story? We're just literally going to take the story from Fright Night and chop up little bits and pieces of it and sprinkle in some hotter, newer actors that are, granted, better at acting than the original actors. I will say that the Charlie in this movie, played by Michael Cera, is a way better actor than the fucking Charlie that was in the original movie. But there's a lot of things that are just different, approached differently in this movie, which I guess you should do in the remake, but they didn't do them the way that I thought that they should do them. For example, the McLovin character who plays the evil character, which is this character from the original movie. In the original movie, he just plays like his kind of annoying friend, and this movie, the evil character is like kind of like obsessed like with the Charlie character, and he becomes a vampire like he does in the original movie. But you don't see that happen, and you don't see him for a long time, and he just sort of pops up at the last 30 minutes of the movie. And that's another thing. This movie, it really just gets going in the last 30 minutes of this movie. Like, Fright Night, the movie, is literally only the last 30 minutes of this movie, which is kind of weird, you know what I mean? Like, this movie, again, it isn't bad. I didn't hate it, but it is nowhere near as good as the original film. Well, I think we can leave it at that. I think I answered the question of which one is better, the remake or the original. And in this case, the original is far better than the remake. Well, I'm Ryan T, and I'll see you in the next one.